Well, this morning I have Sheriff Budensiek here doing a special interview. We had a lot of things that have been happening since you've been on inaugurated. And Sheriff Budensiek, first of all, I have to say I'm very privileged and grateful to have your interview again. I was the first one to interview you after you were inaugurated, so I'm looking forward to catching up with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to catching up with you also, and I appreciate you staying on top of whatever's going on locally. It's important to us.
It certainly is. And we had a really big issue come up last week. And of course, that dealt with the Martin County School District. And everybody is when it comes to safety of our children, it's of utmost importance. And there's different options out there, like the Guardian program and whatnot. But you can tell from community sentiment, everybody's most comfortable with the sheriff officers. So what we saw from the public was a letter that came out from yourself and the sheriff's office that said we need more funding, and it was a 63% increase. And the school
Right.
district shot back another letter and said it's not that simple to just all of a sudden add on a couple $1 million to our budget. We just don't have that ability. So the public saw these two letters, and I reached out to you for an interview. Thank you so much for coming on today because I really wanted to talk about it. A lot happened quickly that day. By the end of Friday, you guys had resolved the issue.
Yep.
So I wanted to follow up with you and find out what happened that there was a 63% increase for funding.
Well, I don't want to bore you with a long story, but let me go back in history a little bit because it's important. Post Stoneman Douglas, so we're going back 2016, 17, I believe. The state of Florida did an unfunded mandate that a school resource officer had to be in every single school, and that included specialty schools. So at that time, we only had school resource deputies in high schools and in middle schools, 13 deputies total at that time. And overnight, we had to take and augment our school resource officer program by at least 17 more positions. And so, again, I use the words unfunded. It wasn't funded on the school board side. It wasn't funded on our side. We're actually still reeling from that because we had to take 17 positions from normal calls for service and put them in the schools, which we were happy to do. But we didn't have the bodies, and we didn't have the finance for the bodies. So, and we did that overnight because it needed to be done, and we were feeling that we were still reeling from the violence that took place down in Broward County. So we're happy to do it again, but it cost us both operationally and financially. Moving forward a few years, we entered into a 5-year contract with the school board that at that time was fair. But as the program grew, it went from 30 school resource officers up to around 38 school resource officers. It became lopsided. And Sheriff Snyder and I would talk ad nauseum about like we need to be paid. We would like to be paid for all of our services because the Sheriff Snyder and myself, we don't have the ability to tax. I'm sorry, this stuff's popping up. We don't have the ability to tax, but the school what does tax, and then they got their half-cent sales tax. So in our minds, we thought it was fair because they're responsible for the safety of the schools uh, that they pay for the full ride, but we realized they didn't have the amount of money. So I come in office, the contract comes open after 5 years, and we immediately started negotiating. We've been negotiating for months, and we were kind of at a gridlock. And what pushed me to put my side of the story out, and what pushed the school district to put their side of the story out, at least I believe, I know I'll speak for myself. Two things happened. One is they set on their agenda a discussion to have a discussion. They weren't necessarily doing it, but a discussion to have a private security firm come and do give them a bid essentially for running the school resource officer program. The other thing that happened was a lot of misinformation was going out on social media. I know some of it came from my side. I did not approve of it, but I could see that it was written in favor of me, and I believe some of it came from the school board side, just because it was written in favor of them. I know they didn't know who did it. I don't know who did my side. I know some of the ones I read were employees of the sheriff's office. So there's a lot of misinformation going out. I understand how Facebook moms, Sturt moms, Palm City moms, Hope Sound, like they get a lot of traction going really fast. And so to put my position in perspective, I put my side of the story out. And of course, the district did their side of the story. And it really did bring it to a head. I know it was a contentious couple of a few hours, but it pushed us to resolve this and come to a conclusion and get rid of that June 2nd meeting, where I think our community would have gone absolutely bonkers had we had that.
It was impressive how quickly you were able to resolve it. As a matter of fact, it looked like something that was not going to be resolved that quickly. So, can you kind of run us through how it was resolved so quickly?
Well, let's go back to the all the employees over in the district, like our elected officials, the school board members. They are phenomenal. They have been working with us. They've been trying to find options. They've been trying to find money, talking to the CFO. So if you looked at what I wrote, there was no one person that was singled out in mind there. It was the district. I use words broadly. We both moved to each other's position. One thing that I wanted was that meeting to be pulled off the June 2nd agenda. It was. I wanted more money out of them. At that time, our disparity was about $1.5 million. So one thing Michael Maine did say was I was unmoving in my position. He was correct in that. I did come down a little bit, and they came up a little bit. So, as any good deal goes, I didn't win, and they didn't win, but our kids won. The safety of our schools won. So that's what negotiations are about.
That's the most important thing. Absolutely. Are you satisfied with how the agreement has come out?
I am. They're paying now about 55% of the bill, and we're paying 45% of the bill. Again, I don't have the ability to tax, so every dime I have to go to the commission and ask for it to come back and pay for positions that were allocated to be on the road patrol side, and now they're in the school side. So we're actually still suffering from the mandates that came down. Happy to do it, but it is a financial lift. You looked at some of the expenses we had in there, like overtime. $650,000 of overtime is a lot of money, but look at what they do. They cover all the big football games, baseball games. The next 3 days, I think Jensen Beach is graduating today. We don't just keep 2 SRO deputies there. We run 10 up there to make sure the families and kids and everybody that comes in there to those venues are safe. So there's a lot of money associated with the protection and safety of our kids, and it's proven itself this year. We've taken 4 knives out of the school. We've responded to a lot of sexual complaints, sexting, texting. We've had complaints of guns, none of which have come to fruition. So we've worked real well with the school district, the school board, and the superintendent, Michael Maine, to keep our schools safe.
I'm glad you brought these things up because it's so important. The overtime was an issue. The
Sure.
school said we're only open 10 months a year. How is there so much overtime? You just explained
Yeah.
how that comes about. So it's very important. And it only takes one incident, right, Sheriff, um, to turn our lives upside down. So it's important every day there's some sort of security there. This budget, does it also cover the road, the crossing guards?
It does. So the crossing guards are part of our SRO program. That costs us about $800,000 a year. So we've been paying for that. That's just the way that's always been. This is long before Sheriff Snyder, Sheriff Budensiek, Sheriff Crowder. It's just been something that was the way it always was. So yes, we run the crossing guards, and that's a tough job. Those ladies and men standing out there in the heat and the rain, moving our children across the road, necessary, rude drivers, speeding drivers. It's a dangerous job. It's a tough job, but they really do work every day to keep our kids safe.
They do. I've seen people run right through them, and right through when they're telling people to stop. It's very dangerous. Do you have any issues staffing that? I know a couple of years ago it was very tough to find crossing guards.
We have had to go back, and we've raised their rates by $10 an hour just to get people in the door. You got 2 things going on. One is the pay is low, and then it's a really tough schedule. You come out in the morning, you come back out in the afternoon. It's good for moms whose kids go to school, but it's a difficult schedule for somebody that needs a full-time job.
What schools do you guard?
I didn't catch that.
I'm sorry, what schools do you guard? Is it all the schools in the county or just the public schools under the district? Is it charter schools?
So it's all the schools in the district, public schools in the district, plus 2 charter schools, TCCA, and then the Pine School down in Hope Sound.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And one final question on this. How do you envision the relationship between the sheriff's office and the school district evolving to prevent similar disputes like this in the future?
Well, a couple things we've learned out of this. I understand their budget. They understand my budget. And again, I know that was contentious, but that was a contentious 12 hours. We work well with them. If you watched our news report, you had the superintendent, Michael Main, coming in. You had the school board members. Again, they are class acts. We're paying a lot of money to figure these things out. This one had to go public. We didn't want it to. I know I struck first. I didn't want to. But I envision in the future, we know that our community has no appetite for outside security firms coming in, so that won't even be entertained. And when we know our school or our community does have the appetite to figure out how to pay for it, however that looks. So if it has to come from the county commission, we'll go that route. If it comes from taxes from the school board, we'll figure it out. But really, again, as contentious as it did seem, if you really read what everybody's saying, they like the job that we're doing and they want to keep it that way.
Sheriff
So we're
Booth,
going to keep
I was just going to agree with you. That overwhelmingly was the message on social media. You know, there are other programs out there, but everybody feels most secure with the sheriff's office watching our children. So,
Yep.
and we appreciate that. Let's move on a little bit. For the last 5 months, now that you've been inaugurated, you're sheriff, there's a lot of things happening. And I think one of the biggest issues is the immigration enforcement and ICE collaboration. In March, your office assisted ICE in an operation in Indiantown, resulting in 11 arrests, 2 of whom had criminal histories. How do you assess the impact of the operation on the community trust, especially among the immigrant populations?
Well, the message for the immigrant population has been pretty clear. I understand. I've watched all the nuances that have been in the national media, but the overall narrative is that everybody's going to go. If you're here illegally, you need to either turn yourself in or self deport and go back. It really has changed the dynamics here in Martin County. You know, people that would just stop for a suspended driver's license or hit and run, we're getting a lot more hit and runs. We're getting individuals that wouldn't generally run from us on foot running. We've had car chases from immigrants that think we're the Border Patrol. So they don't know who we are. They don't know we're the sheriff's office. They don't know what our powers are and aren't. So it has changed those dynamics. I would say, other than those types of crimes that I'm talking about, violent crimes are certainly down. But you got to understand my powers. Where I come in is on the jail side, the 287 program that you've heard about, which they talk about broadly, but really it's pretty uncomplicated. Somebody gets arrested for a state charge. They go into our jail. If they're illegal, our deputies do the right paperwork, goes to the federal government. They put a detainer on, and as soon as they run their sentence in our jail, they get deported, or the process starts to get deported. And then the other part is working on the maritime side to make sure individuals don't come into the country illegally. With all the pressure on the border, they've done a good job of locking down the border, but they have now reverted back to coming in to our maritime borders. So we're working hard on that. So that we can do all day, every day. There's been some legislation passed around that was immediately struck down that gave us temporary power to stop and arrest illegals that were in the state. That got shot down immediately by the Supreme Court, I believe. It's being appealed. And so we can't go out and grab illegals off the street and just arrest them. It's not something we can do legally.
Are you seeing a difference with the influx of fentanyl and those kind of illegal drugs that have been passing through the county?
We have not seen the decrease in fentanyl yet that we're hoping to see. We were hoping when the border got shut down that the prices would go sky high, supply and demand, and that we would see fewer incidents involving fentanyl, but we're still seeing fentanyl. I did watch Bongino, Deputy Director Bongino, and Cash Patel, the director, and they were talking about it being on the northern border that's coming through. So that would make sense for us here locally.
Okay. Given the recent ICE raids in the areas like Golden Gate and Indiantown, how do you foresee the sheriff's office role evolving in the federal immigration enforcement efforts? Do you see it strengthening or?
Well, I'm not passing the buck. Our job is not immigration. We do assist them in operations like the one you mentioned a couple of weeks ago. We're happy to do that. Those were targeted. Like out of those 11, 6 of those individuals had already been deported. A lot of them were criminal aliens. Initially, when the operation started, we gave ICE a list of over 100 people that had been put in our jail that were criminals that had gotten out and not gotten detainers in the last 4 years. So we worked on trying to get them. A lot of them are hiding. So um, we can't put our hands on them. So they're doing their job every day. So a lot of the things you see, they don't even ask us to participate in because they are grabbing people up every day. We'll help them as much as we can legally help them. But again, I don't have the authority. Our deputies don't have the authority just to pull people over and arrest them for being here illegally. It doesn't work that way.
Final question: the ones that are already serving sentences, illegals, what happens with those that are in our prison or jail system already?
So they have a detainer on them. They come in, our deputies under the 287 program realize that they're illegal. They get the paperwork filled out. There's a detainer put on them. And as soon as their sentence is done, and by the way, that sentence could be a 20-year sentence. Most of them are not. Most of them are misdemeanors. Once their sentence is done in our jail or prison, then they're turned over to ICE, and then they start the deportation process.
Okay. You mentioned Deputy Director Dan Bongino. He was on my
Right.
list to ask you about. He was recently here at the Sheriff's Department. Of course, everybody knows he was a Martin County resident. He lived in Palm City and then moved over to Sewell's Point, had the Dan Bongino show. He
Sure.
expressed a lot of appreciation for your department's service. And, how does having a high ranking federal official as a local resident influence your department's relationship with federal agencies?
Well, he knew that he was going to become the assistant deputy director prior to it being announced. So him and President Trump had talked, him and Cash Patel had talked. So, throughout the years, he's had some pretty significant threats placed on him and his family. So us as a sheriff's office under Sheriff Snyder and then me have done what it takes to try to protect him and his family as best we can. He's a high profile guy. He moves around like a normal, or did move around like a normal person. So, there were some real interesting scenarios that we had to help him mitigate. And when he knew he was going to become the deputy director of the FBI, he called me and said, Sheriff, it's coming. I don't know when. So we put a real strong game plan together of how to cover him and keep him and his family safe until the time the FBI got the word and then put a security detail in place. So we did that. We did that for over a week, had SWAT guys helping protect him and his family. And then the FBI came in and they set up their own detail to protect him. So now, whenever he comes and goes from town, they call us. We'll utilize our resources. But for the most part, they're self sufficient. They have a pretty robust detail to keep him safe. But we're always here. We talk pretty regular. I texted him last night about some stuff. So we talk. He's a great ally of ours. He was an ally of ours before he had the power that he has in the FBI.
It is. It's really fantastic that we have that kind of relationship with somebody that far up on the federal level. And
Sure.
with that, how do you plan to leverage the relationships with the federal officials like Deputy Director Bongino to benefit the law enforcement efforts right here in Martin County?
We have a pretty good relationship with the FBI, and we have had that for a long time. Locally, these agents here work well. So currently, I've got two people on the FBI task force. One is designated to do child pornography crimes, which you see the president really pushing on that yesterday. So we have him, and he assists not just here locally, but he is a resident expert on how to crack electronics with a search warrant and arrest these offenders. So he's helping with that, which goes in conjunction with human trafficking. And then I have another FBI task force officer that does some of that, and then he helps with some of their major crimes here locally. So we've always had a good relationship. Just having somebody like that around here gives us credibility, as ironic as it sounds. We don't need resources often, but we know if we do, we can pick up the phone. He's told me many times, if you need anything, just call me and we'll kick into gear. The Russian that was on the stolen boat a couple weeks ago, he was calling down here. Mr. Bongino was calling down here. Do you need anything? Well, in that case, we didn't. I think we figured out there was no nexus to terrorism or anything nefarious like that other than stealing a boat. But he's just a phone call away. His family lives here. He's invested in our community. He's invested in our local politics. Like he loves Martin County and everything Martin County.
Oh, it's fantastic. We're excited about it. And we were excited when he was appointed. So that was
Sure.
an interesting case. You're seeing a lot of them, Sheriff Budensiek, the man who stole the yacht, the Russian that stole the yacht, and then you spoke about AI, child pornography. We had a big case like that here. These things are evolving with the technology that's out there, and I know that it's a lot for your department to try and keep up with the technology because it's evolving so quickly. With that, are there any technological advancements? You had spoke about a new website before that you were working on, that you're still working on to enhance the effectiveness of the sheriff department.
Yes, we rely on technology. AI, I talk on the news often about how the bad things about AI, but we really do use that to our advantage here at the sheriff's office. So there's a couple things that we're doing new since I came into office that are key to us. I took we kind of had a fragmented, not fragmented is probably the wrong word, but we didn't have a dedicated group of individuals for cracking devices or extracting information from devices. Think about it. If you have a burglar at your house, we need to get in your neighbor's cameras with their permission or your house and extract that information. If we do a search warrant on a device, we need to crack the device. So we have a standalone now digital forensics unit that all they do is extract information from devices that helps us make arrests and then successful criminal prosecutions. Another thing that we rolled out last week that I think is pretty cool and helps us respond more appropriately is the live link program, where if you call 911, instead of the dispatcher trying to get height, weight, blonde hair, no hair, what's this person look like, they can send you a link and then you're automatically piping in as the caller, basically FaceTime in the sheriff's office with what you're seeing on the scene. So if it's safe, we ask you to do it. If it's not safe, then by all means don't do it. But if you're kind of standing back watching a crime take place, or you pull up on a nasty accident scene, that truly helps us know how to more efficiently respond and then safely respond. You know, sometimes we get these panicky phone calls and you'll see deputies running lights and sirens. We get there, it's nothing. And then sometimes you'll get a calmer personality that underplays what's happened. We get there and it's a major event. So it's two things that we've been able to get up and running that'll help us be more effective in our job here at the sheriff's office servicing you.
Is that something that your office can text the caller? You get a link or something as you're talking with your sheriff's office and you just hit on that link?
Yes, you call 911, they reverse link it to you and you hit it and it's on for the duration of the call. Now, it doesn't, after the call is hung up, then the link's no longer good.
Fantastic.
Pretty impressive.
Fantastic. Yes. It is. It's very impressive. Just following up here, I appreciate your time today. We'll kind of reflect a little bit on your office and where you've been in the last 5 months. Having served as the chief deputy under Sheriff Snyder, how's the transition to the role of sheriff met or differed from your expectations?
I've come in different times. I came into an open school contract, which you saw how that played out, an open PBA contract. That's our sheriff's office union. New commission, so I'll be doing a budget presentation for them, the immigration issues that have been taking place. So there's been a lot going on for me that I knew the immigration stuff I knew was coming. I didn't know how that would look. There's been a whole lot more stuff going on that has political implications for me than I had expected. So it's been a lot of work. I've sat with a lot of smart people being thoughtful about how we move information, how we message back to you, the public. It's been a lot of work. Operationally, there's been a lot of crazy things happening. The traveling criminals are still very much out there and alive. You saw the stolen boat. You know, we had a bank robbery down in Hope Sound. We haven't had bank robberies here in Martin County for several years. There's been a decent amount of crime take place on top of the more complex conversations that I've been having and information we've been having to move in the background to keep the sheriff's office moving. The transition from being the chief deputy to the sheriff. You know, the sheriff always told me, Sheriff Snyder was always, you just aren't going to know how it is until you're in the seat. And I was like, yeah, Sheriff, because being the chief deputy, I pretty much mitigated whatever he had, but he was right. You get in the seat, you're like, okay, this is on me. You know, there's no playoff here. It's my name that's going to be in the paper if it goes good or bad. And, you know, you own it. And I knew that, but until you actually feel it, it's a whole different feeling. Now he makes fun of me. So we talk regularly, and he just laughs. I told you, but you know what keeps us going though, what keeps me moving, the sheriff's office moving, is we have a strong relationship with the public. We've continued that. If there's a crime, we send it out to our public, and they respond quickly and help us solve it, or at least we tell them, and they're involved in the process of making sure it doesn't happen in the future. So I'm strong because our community is strong.
Looking back at the school district issue, have you done anything differently?
That's a good question, and I have reflected on that. I don't think so. We were thoughtful. We didn't, I saw the Facebook post. So why did you put it out here in the public? And we've been at this for a while. So I think I would have played it the way I did. It wasn't a free ride for me. I got some black eyes in that. None of us came out completely unscathed, but we came out stronger. I came out stronger, smarter, stronger, and our community will be stronger as a result of it. You said it earlier, like, how do we keep this from playing out in the future? I think we solved it once and for all. We'll figure it out, and we'll keep those deputies in there. So I don't think so, but it wasn't a free ride, and I didn't win. The kids won. The kids won. School board didn't win. I didn't win, but our children won.
Which is ultimately what it's about.
Exactly.
And I'll say from my perspective, I think that it moved so quickly that was key to handling the issue as a whole for the public. It was starting to blow up, but it was over with before we hardly had a chance to blink. So I think that was really important that both sides were willing to sit down, discuss this, and work it out quickly.
Well, both sides saw what was taking place. Like, we weren't, I know it looks like I blew it up, but really it was blowing up because of all the misinformation being moved around on social media. That gets moving so rapidly now that's really actually one of my largest concerns, not just with the school board, but there's misinformation moves around so rapidly before we can get a proper message out to people. The misinformation puts us at a deficit. Now we're trying to do our negotiations and then do rumor control. It really is exhausting at some point.
It is. That's one of the, I'm sure, toughest issues you have to deal with is just the social media, the news that travels that's oftentimes inaccurate.
Sure.
Other than that, how would you describe your leadership style and how is it influencing the culture within the sheriff's office? Has there been a big culture shift under Sheriff Budensiek?
No, and that was part of the goal. The Sheriff Snyder allowed me to kind of position my leadership team to where when we came in, there wasn't a big distraction. Of course, we came from a really rough campaign back in 2011, 2012. Good guys running. You had three major D's, friend of mine, Major Snyder, friend of mine, and Major Ski, friend of mine. And that split the sheriff's office, and it took us several years to recover from that. So the goal when I came in was to have a peaceful, smooth transition with no operational interruptions. We've accomplished that. My leadership style, if you pay attention to me, is I'm very much boots on the ground. I come into the office, I walk around. If there's something going on, I'm on scene. But then I have to take time to take a step back and let our deputies do their work. And then I have to take time to step back and actually be an administrator, which takes up the majority of my time. So while I like to be boots on the ground, there's a lot of work to be done here. There's a lot of programs. We have 630 employees. We have a jail. There's a lot going on. So, again, my style is to touch people, be around, go to their office, let them see me. I do my best to do that. I try to see our employees as much as possible. I, on purpose, put myself working shifts every month and a half or so, just so people see me out there working. So I do my best to try to make everybody happy. I know I can't, it's impossible, but we do our best.
That's for sure. That's absolutely fantastic. We appreciate all your hard work. There's one other case I wanted to just ask you about briefly because it brought a lot of social media attention, talking about social media. And I'm sure you remember it. It's the one where the girl was asked to show her ID and she refused, and the officers ended up arresting her for that. Can you talk a little bit about that case, only because it garnered a lot of social media views?
Yes. So we were wrong in some senses. That is there's case law on both sides of that. Where we were wrong, I'll tell you that, and I'll tell you where we were right. The driver, if you watch that video, we were demanding that the driver not video. That's been an asked and answered question for a long time. You get pulled over, as long as it doesn't affect what the officer's doing, you can video, period. So we were wrong in that regard. The passenger, though, was one of the antagonists that was out there just trying to get some clickbait. And there is case law that supports both sides of that argument. One side of the case law says that if you're a passenger and the officer asks for ID, you have to give it to them. The other side, which is which is the side that we're erring on now, is if you're a pastor, you didn't do anything wrong, then you don't have to give your ID. Those sergeants, and it wasn't portrayed in that video, but I did go back and watch it. The sergeants came on scene. They called, they read memos, they tried to do the right thing, and eventually made an arrest. But if we had it to do over again, we wouldn't have made the arrest. Are we going to get sued and lose money over that arrest? No, because it's an unanswered, litigated issue. So, we've done our due diligence. I know we've been threatened to get sued. We're not going to be paying money on that, but it is something where we've educated ourselves. We've learned from that. That wasn't a hill worth dying on, especially with somebody just trying to get clickbait but that cost us a lot of. Our dispatchers took calls solidly for days from antagonists from all over the country. Like, it got into that niche of cop haters, and they beat us. Our local community was like, "Woman, all you had to do is give the ID and move on. Like, the cops aren't going to arrest you. Like, why didn't you?" But the cop haters, they really piled on us pretty hard.
It's an interesting issue too. If you think about everything that's happening with just ICE enforcement and stuff, and you have to show ID to show if you're a resident or not. So for most of us, you're right. You asked to see our ID. Sure, here it is. Yeah. So it was surprising, but I did want to touch base with you on that, and thank you very much.
There's some key distinctions of if you're not wearing your seatbelt or you've done something wrong, then we can get your ID and you have to give it to us. So, the nuances matter, and in this case, again, we would do it different if we had the opportunity.
Right. I'm sure there's different avenues on what you're investigating when you pull somebody over and what have you. So, Sheriff Budensiek, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time here today and reaching out. This is just a way to reach the public. And again, thank you so much for working through our schools, through that issue. And we all know that our kids are still safe. And as you said, that's the most important thing. So I love to hear the backstory. Love that you guys worked it out, and appreciate, again, that you came on here to talk about it.
Well, thank you for highlighting it. And we do look forward to working together. We are a team, school board, me, superintendent, we're a team. And we look forward to servicing our kids through graduation week this week, and then next year when we kick off all over again.
Here we go. Thank you, Sheriff Budensiek. It's been a pleasure meeting up with you. You take care and stay safe out there for you and all your deputies.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Bye now.